Hello friends and enemies, it's been a minute. My name's Kelly, welcome to my channel. We're here to talk about books. My last video, the one about how the Dead Poets Society movie owes me a personal apology, that was a lot of work and I don't ever want to put that much work into a video ever again. I probably will because I have no self-control at all, but not today. Today we're doing something super easy. So today I want to talk about how to read more. You know that. You read the title of the video. So here's the situation, okay? As booktubers go, or any book people on the internet, I don't read that much. I probably read a lot for like the average person, but when it comes to like people on the internet who read, not so much. I just looked back at my Goodreads challenges from the last several years, and from 2013 to 2018, I read 10 to 20 books a year, and that included books that I was reading for school, which was often quite a lot because I got an English degree. And then last year, I read 31 books, which was a huge step up, and those were all for pleasure because I'm not in school anymore. And this year, so far, I set myself a goal of 35 books, but my stretch goal is 52, and so far, I am on track for that. So, here's my thinking. I am in the middle of this, like, getting myself to read more, and so far it's working, so I figured I would just talk about the things that I've been doing and that I have learned that make me read more, and, you know, maybe they will help you read more. Now, if you don't read a lot, if you read 10, 5, 1 book a year, and that's good for you, that's fine. But I know that there are a lot of people who want to read more and for whom reading is a priority, and so, you know, that this is for you. Now, there are a few reasons that reading more is, and always has been, really important to me, but has become especially important to me in the last couple of years. The first is that I realized suddenly that I have a finite number of years left in my life. I don't know how many that is, but it is finite, and within those years, I will read a finite amount of books. And I don't have control over how many more years I have left, but I do have control over where I prioritize reading to make sure that I can read as many stories as I can and want to. There are too many stories that I want to put into my brain. At the rate I was reading before, like say I read 10 books a year and I live another 75 years, that's only 750 more books. That's only, like, that's not enough. That's not enough. That number makes me feel like I'm going to have an existential crisis. The solution is to read more, right? And then there's that reading makes me a better writer. I have spent the last 2 years fully dedicating myself to my first fully completed, fully edited, currently querying novel, and I have realized that the more I read, the better of a writer I am and the more desire I have to write. Read more is like the biggest piece of writing advice in the world, but it's one thing to know that, and it's another thing to actually see how it impacts my writing. Then there's also just that I love to read, and I want to read more because I love doing it. I am happier. I feel more well-adjusted when I'm reading more. So with that said, here are the things that I have been implementing increasingly over the last couple years that have helped me on my journey to reading more, and hopefully will continue to do so because I want to read more than 750 more books in my life. So here we go. My first tip is to work writing into your schedule. For me, that means setting aside about an hour, hour and a half every night before bed. The last thing I do every day is read. Some people like to read in the morning. You could do it on your lunch break, whatever it is. Schedule a certain amount of time to read every day, and sometimes you might have to force yourself to do it, but once you get into a habit, it's actually quite difficult to break it. And eventually, you will feel really weird if you ever don't read when you are scheduled to, because you will have gotten so much into that rhythm. So that's it. That's the tip. Schedule your reading time. Same as any habit, just make it an actual habit. 2, second tip, read things that you like. Don't read books just because they're the books that everyone's reading. Don't read books just because they're the classic everyone says you're supposed to have read. Don't read books just because they are in the genre that you've always read and liked, so I guess you'll read this one too. Like, read books that actually interest you. And if you're not sure what that is yet, read around. You know, broaden your horizons, look outside the genres you're used to reading, and figure out what you really truly love. Because if you can actually look forward to getting back into that book every day, you're not going to want to skip. You're not going to want to not read today or this week or however it is that you've worked writing into your schedule or whatever. You're going to want to prioritize that story because you care about it. Like, okay, I think about myself, right? As I love to do. I was an English major. That for me meant that there were certain books that I felt I was supposed to have read. And for a long time, I had a lot of these classics on my TBR. And finally, I just admitted to myself, I don't actually want to read these. These do not sound fun to read. I don't want to read Moby Dick. I don't want to read The Catcher in the Rye. I don't care. I don't want to read them. I don't have to read those books just because I feel like I'm supposed to like them or whatever. Like, don't. Just read the things you want to read, whether that's mass market romance or speculative science fiction or paranormal thrillers or whatever it is. Just read the things that you want to read and screw everything else. Just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Now, along that same vein, get comfortable DNFing. So many people don't want to DNF, and I get it. I get it. I used to be that way. I was like, I started this book, I'm gonna finish it. That's an uncontrollable urge for some people. Fine, whatever, do your thing. But, you know, if you just don't read that book that you're hating, if you just stop, then you can pick up a book you actually like. And like, reading books that you hate, like reading books that make you feel crappy or that make you not want to read, that make it hard for you to reach for that book, they're gonna make you not want to read in general. Like, that's just what's gonna happen. Don't, just let them go. Just let them go. It doesn't matter. You just happened to pick up this book. It's not like you picked it up because like you had to. It's just a coincidence you picked it up. You're not obligated to finish it. Just put it down. It's fine. Everything is gonna be okay. The world will not collapse if you don't finish it. You will probably forget that you didn't finish it. You're gonna forget that you ever read it because you didn't like it. It's not gonna damage you. It's okay. DNF it. My next tip is to figure out what formats work for you. Some people only like reading hard copies of books. That's totally fine. Some people, you're even more specific, only like paperbacks or only like hardcovers. If holding a hardcover book is uncomfortable for you and is going to make you not want to read that book, don't read hardcover books. Some people really only listen to audiobooks. Myself, I like both hard copies and I like audiobooks, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and they count. And don't listen to anyone who says that they don't count. Audiobooks count. And regarding audiobooks specifically, I know some people just can't get themselves to focus on them, and that's fine. But if that does not apply to you, find narrators that you like. If you can listen to a sample of the audiobook before downloading it, do that, because the narrator really can make or break the experience in a lot of cases. If you start listening to the audiobook and you find that this particular book is not working in audio format for you, that's fine. Let it go. I did that with Rebecca. I still haven't read Rebecca, but I downloaded the audiobook and then I went, yeah, no, this isn't gonna work for me. I really need to sit down and read this book physically. It's okay. You just get rid of it, download another one. Hoopla's free. I personally love audiobooks because I can listen to them while I do other things. So I can be reading while I'm doing dishes or playing Animal Crossing or driving to see my mom or whatever it is. Like, I am using these pockets of time that otherwise feel fairly unproductive and using them to do something that I really love. And if I have a really good audiobook, it'll make me look forward to like doing chores because I'll be like, oh, I can put my audiobook on while I do this and that'll be so nice and I'll, ooh, yay. And that kind of brings me to my next point, which is filling up those pockets of time, prioritizing your reading. And that will look different for everyone depending on where in your priorities reading is. But if you start to pay attention, you will notice that there are many points in your day when you're not doing anything. Moments where you're scrolling on your phone or you're staring into the middle distance or whatever it is. We're all guilty of it. We all do it. If you fill those pockets of time with reading, and that can mean scrolling on your phone while listening to an audiobook, that's fine too. As long as you're not reading things on your phone. That can get confusing. And along with prioritizing reading, that can not only mean reading when you would otherwise be doing nothing, it can mean replacing other things with reading. Again, this is going to be totally dependent on how much of a priority reading is for you. But for example, myself, I have a lot of YouTube channels that I really love. For a while, I had several channels that I had like watched a couple videos, they made me laugh and I subscribed to them. And I found myself like watching all of their videos. And while those creators are great, watching their content was taking up time that I could have been reading or listening to audiobooks. And you know, that doesn't apply to all the creators I watch. Some of them are priorities for me and I'm obsessed with them and I will watch them all the time and I don't feel guilty about doing that. You know, I wasn't getting from these channels enough to justify watching them instead of reading. So I unsubscribed from a bunch of people, and again, those people are wonderful and lovely and their content's great, but it just wasn't a priority for me over other priorities in my life. So if there are things like that in your life, if there are, for example, shows that you are watching that you don't actually care about and you're just watching them for something to fill your time, maybe you would be better rewarded by reading something or just finding better shows also like that. We could be fine. But it's all dependent on where reading is for you in your list of priorities and all that good stuff. Not telling you to not watch Netflix. I watch a lot of Netflix. I'm not telling you not to do that. I'm just saying, figure out your priorities. Prioritize your time. That's all. Whatever that looks like for you. My next tip, I did not plan this video. Can you tell how all over the place I am? Because I am. And my next tip, which might be the last one, I don't know, we'll see, is to have more books ready to read for when you finish the one you're reading now. So, if you are a mood reader, I would suggest having several, just in case. That's what I do. For instance, I always have a set of physical books for when I finish the physical book I'm reading, and I have a bunch of audiobooks lined up for when I finish the audiobook I'm reading. Like I mentioned before, Hoopla is free. So just last night, I went through my entire Goodreads TBR, and I looked for every single one of those books that I don't already physically own or know I want to read a physical copy of. I went through on Hoopla and on Libby, and I looked for every single one of them, and I saved every single one that was on there. So I have a huge catalog now of audiobooks ready right there in my favorites or in my little wish list section of my accounts, so that when I finish the audiobook I'm currently listening to, I can just grab another one and it's right there and I don't have to put in the extra like mental energy to like find the next book. This will look different for people depending on like how many books you own, but even if you just like check out your local library and look and see what books on your TBR they have, whether that's physical or audiobook or whatever format works for you, and know that ahead of time, like know what books you have access to so that you can jump right into the next one. I'm sorry my cat is being so loud, but he lives here so he gets to be. Okay, no, this one is my final one. My final tip is to find people to discuss books with. You're watching this video, so you probably already have this in some capacity, but I'm gonna go through it anyway. So this could mean finding people in your life who you can recommend books to, who you can buddy read with, who will recommend books to you, even if they're not a reader and you can just, they don't mind you gushing about books to them, that can be cool. Whether that means that you write reviews for every single book that you read, whether that just means finding an online community, following people on Instagram or YouTube or whatever who read and talk about the books that you love, that can be a very motivating factor. I think one of the reasons I have been keeping up so well in the last few months with my reading goal is because I have become a lot more involved in the bookish community. Obviously, I am incredibly inconsistent with making videos or posting on my Instagram, but I am always lurking, looking at other people's posts. I watch a ton of booktube videos, and they get me really excited to read and be able to participate more in those conversations, even if that's just consuming those conversations. One of the things that makes books and stories so special is that they are both an intensely personal experience. You know, when you read a story and it connects with you, that can feel very, very personal, but at the same time, they're an amazing way to connect with each other. That's what stories are. It's one person telling a story to connect with somebody else. My camera just like freaked out and died. What was I saying? Having someone to talk to or even just listen to about books that you love, books that you hate, books that you're ambivalent about, that can give you that more communal aspect of what storytelling is, that connection aspect of what stories are. That's it. Those are my 10, it wasn't 10, I don't know how many, tips on how to read more books. That's what I'm doing. It's working for me. What do you do to read more? I want to know, because I am reading more, but I want to read more all the time. Forever. I want to be one of those people who reads like 100 books a year. But I always feel like people who read that much either are only reading all the time, or they don't, or they like are speed readers, which is fine, but I don't like to do that. So I don't know what to do with that. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you want more of my inconsistency, you can find me on the Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, which I don't use, and like and subscribe, I guess.